Morning, Red. Sammy from United People's TV, here to do our weekly fans view, as we always do after the game. Thank you everyone who sent in their views after that shit performance against West Brom. There was lots and lots and lots of them. We'll get through as many as we can. So as I said, thank you everyone for sending them in. Let's get straight to it. First one here from Alan Hack said, even with 11 men in the first 25 minutes, West Brom had the better chances and United was slow and ponderous. I expected this game against West Brom to go very similar to how it went against Watford, and it did. I didn't expect Juan Mata to get sent off, obviously, and play with 10 men, but United against Watford, Watford were all over us. Every time we had the ball pushing out of the back, they pressed us very high, and we couldn't do much with it. West Brom did the same, but West Brom looked a little bit better than us, just in general, really, and just all over the pitch. That United's players never really got into it. I think we had a shot on target in the second minute from Martial. Correct me if I'm wrong, that might have been our only shot on target the whole game. That sort of is indicative of how bad we were against West Brom. And it's another one step forward and two steps backwards, isn't it? We've had confident wins over Shrewsbury Town, League One side, FC Midtjylland, Danish side, after they beat us in Denmark. Then the really good performance was against Arsenal. And then we had, let's be honest, a lucky win against Watford. In a game we should have lost against Watford, they couldn't finish their dinner and De Gea was on good form. Juan Mata came up with the free kick at the end. And now it's just two steps backwards with that performance against West Brom. Nobody was up for it. And that's been pointed out by a lot of you in your comments. One here from Wild Moose, at Tim_Moose. Explanation needed for 4 changes and negative Schneidlin for Herrera change. Back to recycling backwards and not crossing. Now, before the game, Guillermo Varela was very clear. He said, I'm overtired, my legs are sore. So I wasn't surprised to see him dropped out of the team. What I was surprised was to see how poorly Darmian played in his place. We've had Schneidlin going out of the team. I think that was probably with Liverpool in mind. And let's be honest, we still had enough on paper to beat this West Brom team. We had Chris Smalling coming back into the team because that was definitely a good change. And we also put Memphis Depay on the bench and we brought Jesse Lingard back in. Now, I actually thought Jesse Lingard in the first 15 minutes of that second half looked like a player with real purpose. But nothing obviously came from it. And then we all know what happened with Rondon. So I think was our 5th game in 14 days, I can understand the changes. What I can't understand is how shit the players played who came back into that team. That was just, there's no forgiving that. One here from Firefox, at Momo_Firefox. Just look at Fergie's face after the game. I'm sure that's how we all feel. Now, if you didn't see Fergie's face, he was pretty pissed off. It just looked like a glum, deathly stare into nothing, very blank expression on his face. And I think that's how United fans feel. But the sad thing is that loss was not altogether surprising. We've seen it, I think the last 5-6 games we've lost now have been against West Brom, Sunderland, Stoke, Norwich, Bournemouth. These are teams that Fergie would have looked at and said, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. Yes, Premier League has changed, and yes, I don't really think there are many bankers anymore, as in games you look at and say, guaranteed 3 points, because the Premier League is tougher. But those games you're looking at, United have got to pick up 9 or 12 points from. Had we done that, we'd be sniffing at the top of the league. But we haven't. Our record against the top 6 teams is fantastic. Our record against the bottom 7 teams is diabolical. One here from Anaf, at AnafK09, said, youngsters carried Van Gaal last couple of weeks, back to reality now. That's an unfortunate truth, really. We've had Rashford coming through, we've had Guillermo Varela, who's been outstanding in the last month. Who else have we had? Others, I can't remember them now. But we reverted to character against West Brom. It was what everyone feared. Was this another false dawn? Yes, it was, clearly. And this is a position we've been in a lot of times this season. And now heading into the Thursday game against Europa League, against Liverpool, we're now going to be full of trepidation. Everyone was going to be nervous before that game. Now everyone's going to be worried. Whereas previously, had we won that game, it would have been 5 wins out of 5. Going to Anfield, great position to be in. One here from Adam_Red Devil. Thank you, Adam. Said, terrible result. After 2 wins in the league, we bottle it. Poor performance, very disappointing. Now, obviously, Spurs and Arsenal drew 2-2 at the weekend, so that was an opportunity for United. Had we beat West Brom on Sunday, we would be level on points with Man City going into the derby next weekend. We would have been 2 points behind Arsenal, and we would have been absolutely in the running for the top four. The loss yesterday doesn't change too much in that, yes, we are still in the running for the top four, but to get in that top four, you have to string results together. And it looks right now. It sort of goes to show that United just aren't capable of doing that. We've had that performance against Arsenal. I thought was that was fucking fantastic. That was the best Old Trafford has seen in a long time. And then we go and do that against Watford and West Brom. For me, it almost seems like the players can get up for those big games, those Europa League knockout games against Midtjylland. I expect us to play well against Liverpool. But for these lesser teams, for want of a less disrespectful word, your West Broms, your Norwich, your Bournemouths, your Stokes, your Sunderland, United players just don't seem to be able to get up for it. And that falls down to the manager's responsibility. It's his job to make sure that every single player is fucking pumped for every single game. I don't know if he can do that. I don't know if he has done that. And the performance against West Brom, where we showed no fight whatsoever, I don't know. I want to go back to a previous point that was made by Wild Moose. Sorry, Tim, I forgot to mention your point here. Yes, there was negative substitutions. When Schneiderlin came off on the pitch for Herrera, United just receded into a shell. And that was a turning point in the game. It was a point after that, it was just there was no hope of us winning that game. No hope of us turning it around. And in a weekend where Arsenal got a result at White Hart Lane with 10 men, whilst they were losing the game, and a weekend where Liverpool came from behind with 10 men to win against Crystal Palace, United have 10 men, aren't behind, go behind, and show absolutely no fight to want to get back in front. What the fuck is that about? One here from Punik Kamir. He said the lack of fight after going a goal down is poor. Exactly what I'm saying there. Manager is paid to make substitutions and strategy to change the game. It was Van Gaal has been notorious for making strange substitutions. We've seen it lots of times, and we've seen it again this weekend. I don't know how you can take Herrera off for Schneiderlin when Carrick was next to him, and Carrick looked like he was playing through treacle. He was running at 3 miles an hour max pace, and Darren Fletcher made him look like an amateur. Darren Fletcher looked great against that United midfield because it was so pedestrian. It was kind of kicking back to the times when we didn't have Schneiderlin, didn't have Schweinsteiger in the team. That was the midfield performances we saw all the time. One here from Cowboy Mod said, why change a winning team? United can't even get 4th place. Useless unless others fail. Jose, come in. Now, as I said earlier, some changes were understandable. We played so many games. We've got so many games coming up. You've got to rotate your squad. What isn't excusable is how shit the players played who came in. Darmian should have been... that was his chance to get back in the team ahead of Varela, and he didn't take it. And now Varela's got to come in, and everyone's going to say Varela's our number one right back now. Kick back to the start of the season when prior to that Arsenal away game, Darmian looked like a real gem. What's happened to that Matteo Darmian? Was not the same player who played against West Brom, I'll tell you that. Jose come in, doesn't look like anything's going to happen until the end of the season, even if we wanted to. One here from the Damned United, said gutted that once again. We go into a game daring to be optimistic about top 4, only for poor football to slam the door shut. That was a very well-worded comment there. The top 4 is not out of reach. It hasn't changed, but City are now 3 points ahead of us, have a game in hand, and we play them next weekend. Were we to lose that game and City were to win their game in hand, they'd be 9 points clear of us. That would be game over for the top 4. One here from Lee. Sorry, not Lee. One here from Man United retweeter. 2 steps forward, 1 huge step back. Said it. Agree. King Wazza, when life gives you a second chance, you should grab it completely, but we kind of fucked up. Top 4 tough, Van Gaal will stay. That's United this season, really. For all the times we get a little bit of slither of hope, United just piss on the chips. Same thing happens again. One here from Udi Magan said players to be blamed for the demotivated performance, but baffling team selection and subs. We need a new manager ASAP. As I said, I do agree that it was frustrating to see those players in good form out of the team. Maybe Memphis Depay should have played. I think he's young enough to still be in that team every week and not have a problem. And yes, Varela too, but he's not really used to first team football. I understood the changes. I didn't understand the lack of motivation from the players who came back in that team. They didn't look like they wanted to play for their place. One here from Billy said team looked demoralised ever since the red card. That red card was just baffling from Juan Mata, a player who's got so much experience and has never had a red card prior to that. goes and gets 2 of the most pointless yellow cards in the first half. What is the point in blocking a free kick that's 70 yards away from your goal when it's 0-0 and it's 24 minutes into a game? I don't know what Wayne was thinking. One here from T. Byrne said, youngsters play well because they haven't been coached to LVG zombie state yet. Now, young players, I feel, play better under Van Gaal because they don't have a pre-existing philosophy or notion of how to play football in their head. They're being coached for the first time. That makes it easier for Van Gaal to impose his philosophy, impose his ways, and not create any contradictions in their head, which the players like Rooney, Mata, Carrick will have because they played under Fergie, they played under Mourinho. They have different ways in their head that they don't always agree with. Now, I think that's personally why these youngsters are playing better, and they have no fucking fear. They go out. Remember being a kid? When you play football as a kid, all you wanted to do was win games and score goals. You didn't go out there to try and drill out a 0-0 draw and pass it to your mate and make sure you had 94% possession. You just wanted to play goals, play your games and score goals, and that's what the kids do. And that's why the kids have got to stay in this team for the rest of the season if we have any chance of any silverware or that top 4 position. One final point here from Stephen Williams. Most disappointing thing is knowing that we needed 4th and not going for wins. Defensive subs and tactics. Attack. Now, if you're 1-0 down, there's half an hour to go, you've got 10 men, you say fuck it. You say, you know what, let's try and win this game 2-1. Who cares if we lose 2-3, 4-0? At least we can go into that changing room at the end of the game and say that we tried to win that game. Could any player from that Man United team go into that dressing room knowing that they left everything on the pitch? No. None of them. Not one person. Not any player, and not Louis van Gaal either. The players didn't want it, and Timothy Fosu-Mensah coming on for Darmian with 7 minutes to go was almost like Man United protecting a 1-0 defeat. Making damage limitation. That's what it looked like. Instead of throwing the kitchen sink at West Brom, we said, you know what, West Brom, you've won. We'll take the 1-0 loss. We'll move on to Liverpool. What kind of mentality is that? If we slip into that mentality, it is a dangerous, dangerous slope that we're going down, where mediocrity is accepted. And this is a very mediocre season that just keeps repeating itself. And I think there was a Nashat Hassan. I'm going to pull his tweet up down here because I think it was a tweet of the day. He's basically saying that Van Gaal is the Rooney of managers. He gets you with 1 or 2 good performances and gets you excited and hyped up again. But ultimately, he's mediocre and he's past it. And I couldn't have summed it up any better than that. And until he leaves the club, we're going to continue to go through this cycle of a nice little win, like we might beat Liverpool on Thursday. Then we'll lose to West Ham on Sunday. Then we might beat Liverpool again in the Europa League. Then we'll lose to Man City away. And it's just going to keep repeating itself. We've seen it lots of times this season, and I don't think it's going to change until Louis van Gaal leaves the club. That's my opinion. Thank you, everybody, for your opinions. It's great for you all to send them in. I love talking about it. I love to hear your thoughts. So drop a like on the video as always and subscribe to United People's TV if you're new. And we'll see you for that massive game against Liverpool on Thursday. Take it easy, Reds. They were so awful. In a weekend where Arsenal got a 2-2 draw at White Hart Lane with 10 men. Liverpool came back from 1-0 down with 10 men to